Bernstein again. Big opening. Pass 5. Pass 10. Bernie's a man. And he goes all the way to the 15-yard line. 17 yards of the carry.
Welcome back to Believe in Badgers on the Believe Network, presented by BetOnline.ag and Oakbridge Wealth Management. I'm Matt Perkins, joined as always by Badger legend, the Hebrew Hammer himself, Matt Bernstein. Bernie, how are we doing today?
We're good, man. Every day's a holiday on the podcast, and we are so close to football season. I can taste it. I just watched the Giants off season, which I don't even care about the Giants, but it's kind of fun to watch. I'm watching the Bears, who I don't even care about either. All I do is read football stuff. I'm all around. I'm just so excited for the Badgers. All I keep talking about is Alabama. We have a great guest who will hopefully make me feel better about my choice against Alabama today.
Well, that great guest of ours is returning champion Jon McNamara from BadgerBlitz.com, part of the Rivals.com network, and my co-host over on Badger Blitz TV, Jon McNamara. It's great to see you too. Thanks for spending a little time with us here today to give us a little camp intel that, you've been on the ground a little bit. You know a lot more than we do. So thanks for spending some time with us.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure.
But before we get into it, always got to remind the good people tuning in across the globe that we are presented by BetOnline.ag. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything online sports betting. Right now, you can receive a 50% free bet of up to $250 on your first deposit to bet on anything from the Olympics to baseball to Formula One racing. Even though Formula One is in their summer break right now, they don't get back until late in the month of August. Doesn't matter. Head on over to BetOnline.ag. They've got every stat, every match, even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the games are over, head on over to the casino and get in on a game of blackjack, poker, or whatever your card game of choice is, or unwind with 150 different slot games. Head on over to the website today to get in on the action. Use the promo code BELIEVE for your 50% bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. Bet online. The game starts here. And always shout out to Chris Anicetti and our friends over at Oakbridge Wealth Management. If you are a current or future professional athlete, Chris is the guy to connect with you. His team at Oakbridge will create a bespoke wealth management plan for you, and because they know what you go through every day, because that's who they deal with, only professional athletes. They know exactly what you are going through. So make sure to get with Chris so you don't have to worry about your money and you can spend your time getting right on the field, which is what matters to you. That's Chris Anicetti. Link up with Chris on Instagram at Oakbridge_Anicetti. That's Oakbridge_ANICETE. Chris Anicetti and Oakbridge Wealth Management. Badgers have been in Platteville for now, 10 days? I think as we record this, 10 days, 11 days as we record this. Jon, what at the moment would you say is the biggest storyline so far through camp?
I would say Tawee Walker at running back. And, when I was able to get a chance to see him, I wasn't the only one that wrote about him, talked about him. He has looked very impressive, not only in his ability to run the football, have guys bounce off him, run between the tackles, but he's caught a little bit out of the backfield as well. So he looks like a very complete running back. And with Ches Malusi, I would say he's limited right now. We don't know exactly, so I don't want to speculate about an injury or anything. Obviously, he's coming off a pretty significant injury from last season. So that has really opened the door for Tawee Walker to really shine in this offense. And I think he has taken on a bigger role than maybe even the people who are the highest on him thought. I truly think that when the depth chart rolls out, and I don't, place a ton of emphasis on exactly what the depth chart says, but he could very well be that running back one, because I think he earned it in the spring, and I think he's certainly earning it in fall camp as well.
He's a hammer coming downhill, Vern. He's a hammer coming downhill.
I'm pumped because we need him. We need a backup. You need, in this offense, in this day and age, multiple guys. Like that room, dude, even when I was playing you always had a fat fullback who was the fifth or sixth option. But you need these guys, and you can't have a fullback do it anymore. But you still got, Jackson Akers still coming along? Who's the other guy who I really like?
Yakameli.
Those guys are doing all right?
Well, Acker, he is – Bernie, I would say flirting with the fullback position just a touch. I wouldn't call him a fullback, but there have been some two-back sets where he is leading the way for a tailback. And I think he's having a good camp as well. Someone when you talk about, okay, Malusi's coming back, you're bringing in, Walker through the portal. You have these three really heralded tailbacks coming in that 2024 class, and Darian Dupree's looked really intriguing. Dylan Jones in the same boat. Acker and Yakimelli are guys that don't get talked about a ton, but I think quietly, Jackson Acker's put together a pretty good fall camp. I think he's going to be used. It just is going to be interesting to see how they use him. I don't think he's going to be just a blocking back because he can do a lot of different things, but he's been used in different ways this fall, and I think he's going to be a piece for the staff that they can get a little bit creative with him because they do have the depth there, and they should be able to use him in a different variety of ways.
But the depth in that room is solid now.
Yeah, much better than last year. And, you're assuming all these guys stay healthy. You're assuming Malusi starts the year healthy. But, you feel very good about that 1-2 punch. And like you talked about, Bernie, you're going to need 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 guys this year because I think that part of the game will be emphasized. The offensive line has looked better this year. So, you can call it the air raid, but they're going to want to run the ball because I think they're kind of built to do that this year. Like I said, with the running backs that they do have and with the offensive line expected to take a pretty big leap from last year.
Well, let's talk about, we're in the air raid. We got to talk about the quarterback. It's always going to be the talk of the town, the quarterback. Wisconsin brought in Tyler Van Dyke from Miami. And, Phil Longo and Coach Vic have both said it's an open quarterback competition between him and Braden Locke. But I think that competition is pretty much ended, especially if you look at how many snaps the guys have been getting over these past couple of days with the first unit. Seems like it's Van Dyke's team. I guess no huge surprise there, but what do you think it means for this group going forward? And how has he looked to you in person?
I think you want to implement that as quickly as you can. And Bernie, you could probably speak to that better than either of us can because, you want to have that guy who the rest of the guys know this is our QB1 and you start that install and you start to give him the bulk of the reps. Really, if you go back to that first week, I think very intentionally they were giving both Tyler Van Dyke and Braden Locke reps with the quote unquote ones. And then, they flip them and Van Dyke would run with the twos and Locke would run with the ones. And you saw a lot of that in the scrimmage where they were getting basically even reps with that top group just to give them both that opportunity. But, I felt this way in the spring. I mean, this has always felt like Tyler Van Dyke's job to lose. And I think that things are kind of going at a pace where you expect Tyler Van Dyke to be that starting quarterback. He's got the better arm. He can put balls in windows that, Braden Locke just can't. I think if you gave him a quiz on the offense, Locke probably comes out on top there. I think Locke knows the offense, top to bottom better than anyone else. But Van Dyke just does some things a little bit different level than Braden Locke does. And I expect him to be the starting quarterback. He starts to, when they start to flip things over and give him the bulk of the reps, I don't know yet because like you talked about, Matt, this is still an open competition. They are not naming a starting quarterback. They have not done that. So I think all those things can be laid out. But, when the opener comes up, I would very much imagine that Tyler Van Dyke is the guy there.
Listen, it's a whole new ballgame, John and Matt. You probably definitely know when you have a dude who, when you get into a huddle as a new guy, is the stable. And when I walked into that huddle, it was Brooks Bollinger. Like, that guy could do whatever he wanted, and we would do it. Sorgi, the same thing, because you knew he was up next. And then it was interesting. We were kind of in a year with like a Shaybird Stocko, who they brought Stocko in. They really wanted him to be the guy, and they put him in there right away. And it was a little – I would say it was like a little team shattering because people are like, oh, Shaybird's our next guy, and they just kind of threw Stocko in. It does make people upset. I don't know what's happening in the locker room. I like the approach of saying, hey, guys, fight for it. And I think Braden Locke has fought his hardest for it. And I think it wasn't Tyler Van Dyke's position right off the bat. I think they wanted it to be. Yeah. But I think these guys are competing. It's going to make them better. It's going to tell the team, hey, I want it the most. And both of them want it. There's no way Braden Locke's sitting there like, oh, I just want to be number 2.
I don't think Locke can go and say, I just wasn't given a fair shot here, right? Like, I mean,
100%.
Both were given every opportunity to win that job. So I think that, I mean, you've had a true competition here. But look, they brought him in via the transfer portal for a reason. I mean, they felt like they needed another body there to compete with Locke, and I think Locke has made a lot of strides. We listened to Phil Longo talk about that at the local media day, how he's twice the person or twice the quarterback he was from a year ago. And like I said, I do think that he's made gains in a lot of different ways, but there's things that Van Dyke does that Braden Locke just is not able to do with his arm and with his feet too. Look, I mean, he's not just this. I wouldn't call him a dual threat quarterback, but look, he can do things when the pocket breaks down that is going to move the sticks for you, and I think that's exciting about Tyler Van Dyke.
And he wasn't asked to do that anywhere else, so it's exciting that he wasn't asked to do that. I just lost my last Braden Locke. This is my thought. My only thought is Braden Locke is very consistent to me. Like, you kind of know what you're going to get. To me, Van Dyke can give you these big play possibilities, which win football games. You watch any of these other places, you watch Michigan and then championship team, and I hate them more than anything, but they had 30-plus yard runs for touchdowns. Breaks teams' backs, and we didn't really do a lot of that last year. And it's exciting that we have a guy who can do that. I think if he can bring his consistency up and consistently do things like that, then that guy his ceiling is super high.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think that from the first practice that I saw, the only, it was a very, vanilla practice. The only note that I wrote down was Van Dyke just threw off his back foot into double coverage. And those are the type of things where, like, if you talk to Miami people, they're like, yeah, I don't know if he's, all boom or bust, but like, the guy can make throws with his arm. He has NFL arm talent, but then he makes those mistakes where, you just these head scratching throws where, he's not the only one in college football that does it. I think, you lived on that Mertz line too, where it's like Mertz has this unbelievable arm talent, but then he throws balls where you're like, I can watch this, from up at the top of Camp Randall, I could see that's a bad throw. It's a bad throw all day long. So, I think you got to live with the good and the bad. You just hope that there's far more good than bad with Tyler Van Dyke as your quarterback. And hopefully with a more balanced offense, with a running attack, with a better offensive line, better weapons around them, all around in that offense from a year ago, I think he might have the opportunity to do that.
Well, let's talk about that offensive line, because last year to me, Bernie, you and I both beat certain dead horses a lot. Bernie, I guess both of us special teams, kicking the ball out of bounds. But for me, it was the offensive line and snaps, brought in a new offensive line coach, after a season. I think that was, they made that change pretty quickly and brought in a guy who's been the talk of the town in AJ Blazek. They added a second offensive line coach, one of our favorite guys, Casey Robach. To me, like, a lot of the success this year for Tyler Van Dyke and the offense is going to rest on if this offensive line has taken not just one step forward, but they need to take like 2 or 3 steps forward if they're really going to compete.
And they got to stay healthy, because, you look at your starting 5, you're like, I really like that starting 5. But if they have to go to 6 or 7 or 8, I don't know who those guys are. I feel like, JP Benshaw on the interior, you probably feel okay about putting him in a game. Matt, you and I talked about this. If one of those tackles goes down, I don't think they're putting Kevin Haywood, a true freshman, in there. I mean, maybe Barrett Nelson, but he's been a guy that's been nicked up quite a bit. He's running with the 2s right now at right tackle. I think they put Joe Huber at tackle if they have to. But like I said, I really like that starting 5. I just don't know where the depth is. And when Leighton Nelson went down with an injury, and it looks like he's not going to be available for a good chunk of time, that really hurt the depth, because I feel like he was someone, if you needed him to, could have probably played this year for Wisconsin.
Have you seen run block improvement, pass block improvement? What are you seeing out of the front?
This is just a different unit, and I think a lot of that has to do with the coaching change that was made. When that change went down, the expectation was the bar was going to be raised, and I don't think you can take it lightly adding Casey Robach to this group. There's 20 plus guys in that room right now, and you have 2 guys dedicated to work with them. I think that's a huge thing. Not only working with those top guys, but being able to really put time in with that second and third offensive line, I think is huge. And look, they've looked better in the run game. We've talked about Tyree Walker. Guys like Tyree can't operate unless that offensive line is working better. And look, I like the defense that they're going up against too, specifically those linebackers. So, there's been a lot of good versus good during camp. And I think that gets you kind of encouraged when that offensive line isn't able to open up holes against a unit that I think is going to be much improved too. So, like I said, I like that offensive line. Everyone expected that group to take a jump because I don't think it was the right match last year. I'll just kind of leave it at that. So that I think it's going to be a better group, but the depth is concerning to me. I mean, it is very concerning because, like I said, I don't know who that sixth guy would be as of today if they had to go have a reserve offensive lineman play some snaps for him.
Jackson Aker, baby.
Moving to offensive line? Is that what you're talking about?
50 pounds in a week? That would be a goal I would like to try to achieve. I'm not going to lie. We'll bring it back because we don't need to go down. I just did have all-you-can-eat sushi, by the way. It was delicious. Wide receivers, they must look fantastic. I mean, we got so many skilled guys in that position. Are they meshing well? I mean, Braden's been there. How is the relationship between those guys and the QB and Tyler Van Dyke more?
Yeah, we got a chance to talk to the receivers, and Van Dyke and CJ Williams have a little connection. I believe they're together in Platteville, so that that certainly helps. And CJ Williams as a guy who was so touted coming in, so touted in high school. He didn't have the season that he wanted last year, and he could be a guy that's kind of quietly putting together a fall camp where he exceeds expectations there. But Will Pauling, I think, is without a doubt the guy to watch there, and that's certainly not breaking news right now. I think what he's able to do from that slot position is really exciting. But then you kind of hark back on what Luke Fickell says. He said, we're not going to be as good of a football team if he has as many catches as he had last year. And I think that means that they need more production from that room. Bryson Green has had a good camp, specifically in that first week where he looked like their best receiver. He looked like a guy that Van Dyke was looking to as his outlet or his valve every time the pocket kind of broke down. Where is Bryson Green? So I thought he's had a very good camp. Tretch is a guy that they're just going to have to get on the field. And even like this week, a guy like Tyrell Henry, who really didn't get talked about or written much about in week one, has had a better week too, by all accounts. So I don't think there's that big time playmaker that just kind of world beater at the position, but they have a lot of guys, I think, that can play at that level. And it's going to be interesting to see how those, reps are kind of divvied out. Again, led by Will Pauling, but there's a lot of guys that I think they feel comfortable about playing this season. And like I said, it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of stack things up, divvy things out. And look, there could be 4 wide receivers on the field this year. We've seen some, 2 slot stuff. And why wouldn't you do that with a guy like Will Pauling and a guy like Tretch Kekahuna? So I think the room's going to be better. But I don't want to say like they're just going to take the top off of defenses because I don't think they're there yet right now.
Well, we might be seeing not just Will Pauling and Tretch Kekahuna in the slot, but also Darian Dupree. I know, we've seen him running routes, and that versatility is something that could help him get on the field. But one of the reasons that the Badgers might be running a lot of 4 wide receivers is because the tight end room's still a little bit thin. All around. Has anyone sort of broken away from the pack there between, Tucker Ashcraft and, Jackson McGowan, the transfer, and Riley Nowakowski, the converted fullback? Sort of what's the situation right now in the tight end room? Because at least on the offensive side of the ball, to me, that's the biggest question mark.
Yeah, and I think that room's a year away still. You have Ashcraft, I think is a guy that you like quite a bit, but he's young. He plays a true freshman. I think he's going to see a lot of snaps this year. Then you have Nowakowski, who is built like the guy to my right or to the left, I guess, trying to play that tight end position. And look, he's reliable, but he's 6'1", about 245 pounds, and he's not that traditional, spread the field out, run up the middle of the field type tight end. I think that he's going to give you everything that he's got, and there's a lot of things he can do, but he's not the tight end that they're looking for in this offense. I think Jackson McGowan was the guy that you thought could come in and maybe give them that vertical threat. It hasn't been there just yet. I don't think that's not to close the door on him or not to say that he's not in a place where they expected him to be. But in terms of that room, he was the guy I think that they were probably the highest on in terms of we can run our offense like we want to because of a guy like Jackson McGowan. So, like you talked about, Matt, there's 6 guys in that room. There's not a whole lot there. You talked about those top 3, and then it's 2 true freshmen. Grant Steck is a monster, but that's a lot to ask as a true freshman to come in. Robert Booker, look, he sticks out. You scan the field, there's 120 guys on the field, and he's one of them where you like, oh, yeah, he's 6'6", 6'7" with a frame to add good weight, but I don't know that he can come and play this year. So, like I said, I think that room's a year away. So you're going to have to rely on getting a little bit more creative with the running backs, wide receivers, and like you talked about, Matt, a guy like Darian Dupree. Use him however you can possibly use him to get him on the field on offense or special teams or whatever you have to do. But I mean, he seems to be a special talent that I think he'll play this year. He's not a redshirt guy. I mean, there's a few of these guys in that 2024 class where they've recruited at a level of, look, in Alabama or Georgia. And when you recruit those type of guys, they don't come into redshirt. They come in to play. I mean, in whatever capacity that is as true freshmen. You don't tell a guy like Darian Dupree, we're going to put you on ice right now for 6 months, and we'll see you in spring camp. We hope that you're doing well. I mean, those guys just play. So I'm excited to see what a handful of those guys from that 2024 class can do this year.
It is sad that the tight end room is kind of taking a little bit of time to get up to speed, because the versatility, if you have a tight end who could stand up and put his hand down on the ground or do whatever Coach Longo wants, is like, it messes with defenses. It messes with other teams. The matchups are never good. Look at Owen Daniels. We did this, Travis Beckham, Lance Kendricks. Like, these guys are always open every single play because the matchups are just wonky. And depending on defenses, you just can't match up with them. So I'm really hopeful that they kind of, maybe even if they hit their stride midseason, John, you give them a year. If I give them 6 months, it would be nice. I mean, maybe we'll be out of the season, but like 3 months.
And I talked about this, or I've written about this. McGowan could be a guy where it's like mid-season where it clicks for him, right? So I mean, when they got him, I can tell you the people in that department, recruiting department, whatever you want to call it, like, they feel he has NFL potential. I mean, and that's not blowing smoke right now. It's just going to be when that clicks for him. And I mean, the belief in him is high. I just don't know when that's. I think he puked like twice in like that one of those first couple practices when I got there. That's what they filled me in with. Like, oh, he puked twice, and then they went right back at him for a third time or something. So I don't know. He's figuring stuff out just like any young guy is at camp, I'm sure. But like I said, I think the ceiling for him is high, and that staff believes in him. So like, if you're in the middle of Big Ten play and all of a sudden he starts to get more and more and more reps, that would not surprise me. But I think, at least at the start of this year, it's going to be a lot of Ashcraft, a lot of Nowakowski.
Well, you talk about the freshmen who are going to see the field, and one of the other guys who's been a big name coming out is Xavier Lucas, the cornerback out of Florida. And he's been kind of the talk of the town, at least in the defensive backfield so far, in terms of new guys, in terms of, turning heads and maybe surprising a little bit. Do you think he's going to see some significant time this year based on what you've seen so far in camp? Because he looks the part. He already looks the part.
I mean, you guys correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know that I've seen a Wisconsin cornerback that has looked like Xavier Lucas, and I don't think that's hyperbole, to be real honest with you. I think in a lot of years, any of the Barry years, maybe any of the Bielema years, any of the Christ years, like, he would have come in and play as a true freshman. I do think he plays as a true freshman, but that's a pretty good group right now. You have Ricardo Hallman, you have Nazir Forkreen, and you feel really good about those two cornerbacks. Max Lofi is a guy in the slot that I don't want to say he was written off, but he was injured for a lot of time, and now he had a good spring and he's having a good fall. So you feel like he's your nickel guy. So you have 3 cornerbacks I think they feel very good about. You have Jonas DeClona, Jace Arnold, who's put together, 2 young guys who put together a good fall camp. You have RJ Jalancey, who they brought in through the portal, who is playing more on the boundary, I would say. And he was a guy that I think we expected to maybe play in the slot. So now you're talking about 6 guys who probably are game ready. And then you throw a guy like Xavier Lucas in the mix, where everything I said about Dupree, I think you could say about Lucas. I mean, he's not a guy that should be redshirting for you. I mean, put him on special teams. put him in garbage time in some of these games that you maybe could, sneak a few reps in for a young guy, because he just, to me, does not seem like a redshirt guy. He's 6'2", 190 pounds, and he might be the fastest guy in that room. I mean, he truly has NFL ability and early round NFL ability if he reaches his potential, he reaches his ceiling. So, to me, I think you get him as many reps as you possibly can, because I think in year 2, he's at the very least competing for a starting job at cornerback.
John, do guys even stick around for year 2 if they get garbage time? Okay. Neither. I mean, it's like one of these now. It's one of these new questions. Like, you give guys, garbage time and a lot of reps, and then, when I played, he was guaranteed to be the next guy. Now it's like, dude, just please stay, don't go. We don't have to really get into that. It's just one of those weird new kind of things that you just never know.
I think that's absolutely worthy of talking about, because it is the way that college football is right now. It is the way that college athletics is right now. I mean, if you have a chance to play a guy, you can't, way back in the day, you could say, this is what the depth chart might look like in 2 years. This is what the depth chart might look like in 3 years. Now it's, you might not know what the depth chart looks like in 3 weeks. So you cannot play that long-term game of, God, Xavier Lucas is going to look great as a redshirt senior. You have to just look at whatever collection of talent you have right now and play who is ever capable of playing, and not worry about red shirts, not worried about hurt feelings, not worried about, well, what about this guy next year? I truly think that you have to look at it through that lens, Matt, and I think you're absolutely right.
So you throw out we don't really care about what their age is. So like red shirt, your freshman, sophomore, none of that matters anymore. It's just, if you can produce positive results, you're in, and we're going to get you time wherever it is. John, it's like you just like, I had an epiphany of like, we don't care about people's ages anymore. Like, if they're here for 2 years, great. If they're here for 4, even better. If they're here for 5, that'd be amazing. But it's not going to happen anymore.
Yeah, and
we
to
just can't look at it like that.
Lucas is a guy that is not a 5-year football player in college to me. He might not be a 4-year football player in college to me. I mean, truly, if he does what a lot of people think he's going to do, he could be a 3-year guy. And like, as soon as my time is up, like, yeah, right. And I think that, again, like, we haven't seen this guy play a snap of college football. I get that. Right. But if he does what people think he can do, he's 3 years at Wisconsin in the NFL.
Yeah. So I'm actually not nervous about the DBs. I thought they played well last year. I thought that they just had to literally defend for way too long. My biggest question mark of the defense for me is the D-line. It all starts up front. I didn't think we had the guys last year. I would love to hear your thoughts on how they're growing, because they were still, I think, in their infancy last year. So love to hear how they're producing.
Better, but I don't know that you have a true game breaker there. James Thompson Jr. is probably your closest thing to it. I don't necessarily know that they'll need that. Look, would you love that? Of course. Yeah, of course. You take that any day of the week. I think if this line can just give you a C+ to let those linebackers flow and move and use their tools, that's going to take this defense to a level that it wasn't at last year. And I think a lot of that is, can they play 5-6 guys this year? And I think they're close. Look, you have, I don't know if they're going to be a lot of 3 front or they're going to be 2 down linemen. I think if it's 2, it's James Thompson and Kurt Neal. If it's 3, you put Ben Barton in the mix. And then you go to the next wave. Look, Brandon Lane is going to play. Elijah Hills, I think, is a guy that can be solid for you. Cade McDonald, probably in the same boat. So that's 6 guys. If you can use those 6 and rotate and truly feel good about 6, I think you're in a good spot. And then, Jamil Howard, I don't know if it clicks from this year. It might not. Dylan Johnson, he's another guy from that 2024 class where guys are excited about him. And I think that if you needed him too, he can play this year. So maybe that gives you 7. But if they're able to have a true rotation there, that's going to be huge for the unit. There's not a game record there. Thompson Jr., and maybe he's a third team all conference type of guy. He's the closest thing you have to it. But if they can even just be solid, I love that linebacker group from inside and outside. And if they can just free and play in space, I think they're going to have a good year there in that front seven.
Those linebackers, a lot of new faces. John Pius, Jaheim Thomas, Tackett Curtis, Leon Lowry, Sebastian Cheeks, second year from Christian Allegro, Jake Chaney, Tyler Jancey has been making plays. Obviously, Daryl Peterson is back. The Enigma Aaron Witt, I think, is injured again, but also the day ended in Y. So, what are you expecting there? Who else has been bitten by the injury bug as much as Aaron Witt? Not a lot of guys in Badger history, but this linebacker room is just like night and day in terms of from last year, in terms of athleticism, in terms of I think what really Mike Tressel wants out of the unit.
Specifically on the inside, I mean, they I don't want to say they gutted the position. Jordan Turner transfers to Michigan State. Muma goes on to the NFL. I think those guys were good guys. They were just not a fit in this defense. I mean, they were I can clean up what's in front of me. They struggle going sideline to sideline. They struggle in space. I think they struggled a lot with just grasping the defense and what Mike Tressel wanted them to do. And that's a different unit now. Jake Chaney looks good. He's returning from that group. He's stout. He's twitchy. In that first week, he was creating havoc up the middle. And I mean, look, pressure off the edge is great, but if you can get it up the middle, I mean, that's even better. I think he provides some of that. Jaheim Thomas, I think that first and second down, you'll see him on the inside. Third long, he's a guy that you just say, pin your ears back and get to the quarterback. I mean, he is legit, college football talent coming from the SEC. He's a guy I think that if he puts a good year together here, you'll see him playing on Sundays. Tackett Curtis, Christian Allegro, young guys you feel really good about. Allegro, another guy that gives you a ton of versatility. And like you said, Matt, a little bit of Tyler Jancey sprinkled in there too, probably someone that you didn't expect. Sebastian Cheeks on the inside. I mean, that is a room that is completely redone. I mean, it's like you bought a starter house and that kitchen was there from 1979. And now that kitchen is 2024. I mean, it's got all the fancy parts, everything that you wanted there. And on the outside, they did it through the portal as well. John Pius, guy that's going to play a lot of football for them this year. Leon Lowry, going to play a lot of football for them. They pair with Daryl Peterson. Now, like you talked about, do they have a fourth right now? Thomas Heiberger, I think, was kind of penciled in there, but, he's just went down recently with an injury. We don't know when he's coming back. Lafayette, another from that 2024 class, does that open the door for him? Potentially. But with guys like Allegro and guys like Jaheim Thomas, I think you can use them off the edge on third downs, and maybe that blow of losing Heiberger isn't as significant. And, Aaron Witt in the same, because I think if he's healthy, he's in that too deep. So they can get creative about the guys they want rushing off the edge because of guys like I said, Allegro, Thomas, and the versatility that they bring. So those injuries aren't as maybe impactful as they may have been because they have some versatility in the middle.
John, do you think the 3-3 is here to stay?
As long as Mike Tressel's there, as long as Luke Fickell's there.
Okay. I mean, do they both have to be together? I mean, this is a speculated question. I love these guys. But, if the 3-3 doesn't work this year with guys we want, are we going to say then it's the D-line that didn't happen? Then what happens? Then if it doesn't work next year, what happens? I'm just coming from, this is a really hard defense to, learn and produce in.
I would also say that, I don't think we've really actually seen it yet. Last year the theme was mesh the good with the good, and it just kind of turned out to be a muck, or what you want. I don't know if you can swear on this show. It wasn't.
Bleep it out. It was really bad. We'll go with that.
It wasn't what they thought it was going to be. And I don't know. You might not in year 2. You might not truly see that 3-3-5 that Mike Tressel wants. I mean, it could very well be year 3 where we've had 2-3 full cycles of recruiting and portal, and now we can truly run what we want to. Again, I think you'll see a lot of 2 down linemen where, because of the bodies in that unit and because of, hey, how do we get our best guys on the field? Well, let's put 2 down linemen, put Lowry and Pius right on the edge, stack some inside linebackers. We feel good for secondary. So you may not truly see this is everything Mike Tressel wants to do in his offense. Mm-hmm. And, in an extension to that, obviously Luke Fickell as well. So that might be more of a year 3 thing. This year, more of let's just try to get our best 11 on the field as often as we possibly can and just kind of go from there. So I'd be hesitant to call this a 3-3-5 this year. I'd be hesitant to call this really anything. I think they're just going to use a lot of different things and just really base it off the personnel that they have this year and the guys that they think that can kind of succeed the best, depending on down and distance.
Well, John, the elephant in the room for the last couple of years has been the special teams. They've been rough. Let's face it. It's been bad news in all phases of special teams for the last couple of seasons. Give us a reason for hope.
Gianni Smith probably won't kick the ball out of bounds on kickoffs. Now we haven't seen that in Platteville. There hasn't been a ton of that. The stuff that I was able to see, a lot of modified special teams work. A lot of return game stuff and setting up blocks. Mm-hmm. You've seen a little bit of kicking with Nathaniel Vakos. And again, I think he's a guy inside 45 you feel real good about. Beyond that, I don't know. But in terms of the stuff that you can clean up from last year, I think Smith can come in and do that. He has a powerful leg. If he can just get the ball in the end zone consistently, that erases a lot of trouble for you. Is he a guy like that on a 50-yard attempt and beyond, maybe he can come in there and do that too as well? I don't know. But I think at the very minimum, he can clean up a lot of those kickoff issues that they had. Punting Atticus, again, I don't want to say that I went and watched him in Platteville a ton and could take anything away from it. I can't say that. So he just has to be better, or I think they're just going to hit up the Australian factory and say, we need a new one. Send us the next one in line.
Well, I mean, they got Eric Schmidt. They got Eric Schmidt coming in, who could be, if he does turn out to be the guy, he could be a panacea there.
That could very well be true too, as well. So, I mean, he has to be improved, right? Year 2, get settled, all that good stuff. I think he has a big leg. It just has to be more consistent. We just have to see a little bit more from it this year. So I can't tell you that will be improved. No, it will not be improved. I'm just gonna have to see how it looks. Hopefully, some of these Camp Randall practices that are coming up, and then we're right into the season. A couple weeks, man.
It was a huge running on the field on the 15 or the 12 to huddle compared to the 30 is a big mentally. It's a big deal.
Yeah,
on
absolutely.
Offense, we already got almost 2 first downs,
yeah.
And so we joke, but we did it 6 times, and not in all the same game, which is even worse because you're giving all these other teams. How many yards is that? It's a lot, especially when your defense is struggling. You don't want to make it easier. So it's very annoying. Missing field goals is a pain in the butt. You got to get points on the board. That's how you win football games. So I think we can do it. You're not going to see a bunch of it because nobody really wants to practice special teams. But the problem is the best teams practice it so much. It's it's like your routine. You just know what to do. But it has to be an area that they're concentrating on because, man, it's embarrassing to kick the ball out of bounds so many times.
And they added another body there, right? I mean, they allocated another on-field coach to, I don't know if it's specifically to make the guys kick the ball inbounds and through the end zone, but that's probably on his play sheet every day of practice. So, I mean, they're allocating the resources there. Look, all those guys are scholarship guys. Your kicker, long snapper, punter. I mean, that shows the emphasis that they're putting at that position. So they're just going to need better results. And the Gianni Smith kid, he's brought in to kick the ball off without any. Just be done with it. Take care of that for us. Go run the sideline, and then that's everything that we want you to do. So I think that if he is what you think he is, he takes care of that headache.
Done. Taylor Melhoff that ball right into the end zone.
Yeah.
Just when it's consistent, that is nice. because the offense just goes and runs down there and waits. The defense stands. Okay, I don't want to drill down on this. John, you've been at practice at Platteville. It's definitely not the seminary. But what's the vibe? Like, how are the guys doing? The practice, they're not the same as 3-a-days or 2-a-days. They're probably just 1 a day. But what is the vibe at camp? It's still football camp and it still sucks. What are you seeing from the team?
Well, all the guys get asked about that. How is Platteville? Do you hate it? Do you all these type of things? And, they don't really bite on that. Look, 20-year-old me, Wisconsin student, I didn't play football there, but I wouldn't want to be locked away at Platteville for 2 weeks, especially in the summer. Well,
especially with cell phones and
yeah. So I don't know. They're not miserable, right? I mean, camp looks like camp. It looks like at Camp Randall, looks almost identical to Platteville. In terms of guys out there moving around. You're not seeing guys, oh my God, this is day 17 of Platteville, I'm miserable. You're not seeing any of that. But look, these guys, I'm sure they cannot wait to get back to Madison for a number of different reasons. So, but this isn't something, I don't want to build it up. I don't think it's even a storyline, right? Of like, how terrible it was and this and that. And I think it's just, they moved them out to Platteville. It is what it is. They're just grinding through it. And if you gave them all a secret ballot of, do you guys want to come back next year? I don't know many that would say yes. But Luke Fickell must see a reason to do this. He is this old school type of spending time together type of, whatever you want to call it as it comes. So if they go 7-6 again, though, I don't know. Like you say, hey, why are we going to Platteville for a year?
Well, I choke as I think about the seminary, but I found value there. Like we were there for 18 full days.
Yeah.
And this is before a time with pretty much the internet doing a lot of things. And I had a cell phone that didn't work pretty much anywhere. So maybe it's a different, the stressors the outside stressors that your connectability to the world, all those things, probably more stressful as a kid today than it was when I was there. We had 2 channels at the seminary and nobody really cared. There was no Wi-Fi. There wasn't Wi-Fi, it wasn't a thing. So but the value is you're with your guys, you're swimming in a pool together, you're in this big, you're only doing football. For a number of reasons, it seems valuable. I'm not trying to be like, oh, they hate it. Dude, if you came and asked 19-year-old Matt Bernstein if he wanted to go back to the summer, I would have literally jumped in the freaking Mendota and swam across to the other side. And if a boat hit me, I would have been mad about it. So, I feel what these dudes feel. The question is, are they at least embracing just embracing the suck and just saying, we're going to just get better. That's the only real reason we're here, is to get better at football.
Yeah, I think that the purpose has been laid out to them. And I think that, they know why they're there, right? It isn't a surprise. It's not something that, you committed and, when your bus showed up to take you to Platteville, you were shocked. They know this is the drill. They know this is what they're doing. I don't know. Could you do all this stuff at Camp Randall? I think it could, but I'm bitter because I don't want to drive out there. That's just a me thing. That's a me thing, right? So look, if they do well and you want to point to Platteville, got to start, hey, go ahead. Do it. That's perfectly fine with me. But it's, if you have the same results, you could have done it all at Camp Randall. I don't know, maybe, but they're logged, they're locked in, I think, for 3 years. So for as long as this show continues for the next 3 years, you'll be talking about Platteville. I just hope they don't stay longer.
My senior year, we moved to Camp Randall. And it's just bizarre. You live in your house, you drive your scooter every day. The issue is if you have to be there at 6:15 in the morning, getting up at 5:30 sucks compared to just waking up at 6 and rolling out of bed. But you can do everything at Camp Randall, and I don't know if there's value there. I think being in these places, and Platteville's not a dump, so I don't want to say that, but being in a place that's not Camp Randall, there's some value there, right? It's been proven for years of people doing camp at these different places. Now, I don't know. Maybe it should go back to shut the Wi-Fi down. See, I think their heads will explode if you make them turn their phones in. And I don't think that's the right thing to do. But I don't know. Maybe the drive sucks, but I like going to football games. When we didn't go, I was like, man, this doesn't have a good, like, it just doesn't feel right.
It's one of those things I think you reflect on, and it's much more enjoyable to reflect on than being in the moment of it. And, you can speak to that better than I can, Bernie, but it's like, right. you talk about it at a wedding. You're like, hey, remember we were at Platteville for 17 days? That was terrible, but it was cool to talk about because this happened and this happened. So, that part of it, I do think, it's cool and all that good stuff. And look, we'll see how it kind of comes. But like another thing you pointed out, Bernie, like you guys had to do 2-a-days. I remember covering a practice like in the morning and then like watching you guys like retape, like put everything. I'm like, geez, it's like 107 degrees out, and they're putting all of it back on again. So they don't have to do that. It's practice, it's film, it's hydration, I think it's a more enjoyable experience of not pounding 9 hours on a field into you, as opposed to like 2.5 and then 2.5 of this, and then we're going to eat, and then we're going to do that. So a little bit more balanced than what your day was.
Dude, when I first got there, I was like, I don't know if I could do this. It was 2-a-days in a row, and then like a 4-hour scrimmage on Wednesday. And they could do a long scrimmage because we weren't practicing in the afternoon. We did a walkthrough with no helmets. Did fucking full go. Sorry, guys, but Matt, bleep that out because my wife's mom's probably listening. Dude, it was full go with no helmet on. When I showed up, I like jogged in there and patted someone down. And John Welsh, the D-end, moved me so fast and made the tackle, and Coach White yelled at me. And I was like, Coach, I have just cleats on, dude. I got nothing else. Like, what do you want me to do? And literally, it was a full go practice with no pads. And I'm like, where the hell am I, man? This is the worst thing But then it changed the year after to every other day, 2-a-days.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really help, because that means Tuesdays and Thursdays were 100 times harder. And my favorite ever, one day it was like 107, 2-a-days. Barry stopped practice for one period, 5 minutes, and they gave us ice pops. I mean, just an ice pop, dude. And I was like, I cannot believe that this is what we're doing. Like, just call practice.
Yeah, and that was probably a recruiting violation too, or a NCAA violation.
And you know what? It probably was. Sadly, everything was a violation. Oh, but I'm not comparing. It's apples and oranges. I'm not saying these guys are wimps because they're not doing 2-a-days. I would never wish 2-a-days on anybody. But I would say, like, during those times, they must be hard practice where you grind to get better, because your opportunity to do reps is much less. Mm-hmm. Now, the grind of your body doing way more. I remember those second practices were just like huge headaches for me, which is probably bad for my brain. But they were just, I'm like, man, I can't do another power today. Coach White's like, good, 27 power. I'm like, come on, dude. Do you read my mind? How do you know?
I think that, not to just keep on, but the game of football, I think, is just in a better place where
I totally agree.
People are smarter, like, hey, we don't need to have these guys out there for 5 hours running 22 power, right? Like, we just there's a better way to do this. So, like, now we've seen that. We're in a better phase of football right now. So
I think we are. I think but that's what I like, bringing in like this old school, going to camp, even though it's like these beautiful facilities and you're on somebody else's playing field. Like, all these things are nice, and that is new age, but still going to football camp is an old school thing to do. I like it. You pack your bag and you go sit in go to some random dorm room. I think that's enjoyable. Now, I will say, and this is the last thing I'll say, getting into your room and finding the itinerary that's like as thick as a book, and it says, day 1, and the first thing is like 8 a.m. check-in, and you cross that off because you checked in, and it's like 8:15, and you're like, man, I'm so much closer to. And then you look at all the pages, and you're just like, I swear, if I had those, I literally every hour I marked off when I got back to my room. It was like, for 5 years, it was like goodbye, morning practice, tape, breakfast, whatever, lift, all of it, nap time. Oh, that sucks that it's over. And then right to whatever, and it was every day, and then I would rip them off and throw them in the garbage because I didn't need that page anymore. But we are in a different place for football. so nobody has to do that. I don't wish that on people. I'm thrilled. John, game one, not a South Dakota, right? South Dakota?
Are you asking or are you telling me?
I think I'm asking. It's South Dakota, right? North Dakota?
Yes.
South Dakota.
South, yeah.
South Dakota. Thoughts on the ramp up? I know we're over and I got to go too, but thoughts on the ramp up, like South Dakota. Oh man, I can't believe I'm blanking on the second game. Buffalo, and then right into Alabama.
So I like this, about old school. I like the ramp up. Starting right away with Penn State. That's tough, right? Like, you get thrown in the fire right away. So I do like the ramp up, the traditional way that Wisconsin usually starts seasons. And then, you ramp up to, like we talked about, Alabama week 3. That's big. So I think that having those two non-conference games before Alabama is big. You find out what you have on both sides of the ball. You find out what you have on special teams, if a guy that can kick it into the end zone. So I am in favor of the ramp up as opposed to, that big, matchup at the start of the year, whether, it's LSU, even though that was a great thing, good experience and everything. But the ramp up I do like is a traditional way to start the season. And I think it's a good prep for a big time game against Alabama at camp.
I agree. I think the ramp up, at least this year, is a good thing. Those teams that played LSU and Alabama first game were much more experienced. They had a lot of guys who were, it's a different age, but I think we see when the 3-3 becomes the actual 3-3 and guys have been there for maybe a year or two, you might see Alabama first or different kind of switching of philosophy to play a hard game, not take two off, but play Buffalo and South Dakota or whatever, and then play Penn State.
Yeah, it's from a media or a fan's point of view of like, hey, what's this offense really going to be like? Because we know we're not seeing everything right now. We know we're not going to see it until week X, or the defense isn't going to show anything until they play this team. So it's almost like a little teaser, little bit of what it is, and then because you expect like anything that they really like, they're not going to put on tape for Alabama.
Sure, 100. That's why listen. No matter what, you got to win these games, though.
Yeah,
you got to win. But yes, I would be like, don't be. You might go see vanilla games if you're like looking for a complete offense. You might not see that.
I think that's fine if they're playing well against Alabama. I think fans will take that.
Well, John, you always play well when you come on the show here with us. We really appreciate you stopping by, giving us the latest intel from camp. Make sure that you go over and subscribe to BadgerBlitz.com. The best intel, the best information, the best writing anywhere in the Badgerverse that there is. Come hang out with me and John every Monday over on Badger Blitz TV, talking recruiting. Just make sure that you're tuned in. So we appreciate everyone tuning in, speaking of, to the Believe in Badgers podcast on the Believe Network, presented by betonline.ag and Oak Bridge Wealth Management. Thanks again, and until next time, on Wisconsin.
On Wisconsin.